Hi, my name's Stuart Ascott. I'm from West Suffolk College, and today I'm going to be making pizza dough. I'm making pizza dough for the kids to eat for tomorrow night. They love just a margherita, a cheese and tomato. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the Polish. This has an incredibly small amount of yeast in it, because the pizza dough, you don't want it to keep proving really big. You know, it's a slow fermentation, but because it is a slow fermentation, you'll also get some nice big air bubbles in it. By that slow fermentation as well, you'll also have a nice chewy pizza dough. So you'll have a nice chewy texture, so it can be nice and thin, but it won't be all floppy and sloppy. It will crust up nice underneath, but give it be nice and chewy. So in here I've just got 250 grams of bread flour. I've used 0.3 of a gram of fresh yeast. So that'd be if you were using instant yeast, that would just be a nice big generous pinch. Just a pinch of that, and that would do. And so what I'm doing is I'm making what we call a Polish. So 250 grams of flour, I'm now putting in 250 grams of warm water. And like I say, it will seem to people that know about making bread, it's going to seem like a really small amount of yeast. When I say it to my mum, oh, I'm making this and I'm using that much yeast, she's like, what? I'm used to using 10, 20, 30 grams per kilo. So when you're using 0.3, it's quite a small amount. So anyway, into there, the yeast, the flour and the water. It will look quite wet, and it's meant to look like that. Okay, all I want to do, I'm going to use a spoon just to give it a mix together. And all I'm making sure is that I've got no lumps and I've got no dry bits. Otherwise, the flour will hydrate funny, and then you'll get like hard little bits through your dough, and it won't be very nice. Okay, so simple as that. All I've done, 250 flour, 250 water, the yeast, and I'm going to cover and leave that overnight. This is going to be a really easy pizza dough to make, and it's something you can make for the kids with so little hassle. It's really good. So all I'm going to do, leave that till about 8 o'clock in the morning while the kids are having their breakfast. I'm adding then another 250 grams of flour, 100 grams of water, 10 grams of salt. I'll then need to let it prove all through the day. So it'll prove until about 3 o'clock, just early in the morning. Two stages. I'm going to fold the dough, and then by about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, it'll be ready to go. I'll probably leave it out in the sun because it's going to be nice and warm tomorrow, so it will really ferment up. And then all I've got to do is shape it and make the dough. With the recipe, there'll also be a nice easy pizza sauce, and then I'll show you the actual making, the cooking, the finishing off. So it's now the morning. I've let my pizza dough prove, or the ferment overnight. It's about 8:30 in the morning, so it's been going about 13 hours, really bubbly and lively. So I'm doing a half recipe because it makes quite a lot of dough. And here I've got 250 grams of flour, I've got 10 grams of salt, and then I've got 100 grams of warm water. So all I'm going to do, add the flour, add the water, and now just bring it all together. Now, what I said about this is it's quite an easy recipe, and the reason it's an easy recipe is because we're not actually going to knead this dough. All we're going to do is fold it. So just bringing this together until there's no dry flour. Take a second, and then once that is together, I'm going to cover it, and then in about an hour I'll give it a fold. And what that's going to do, the folding is what's going to develop the gluten. You'll hear things like auto-lease and things like that, people talking about making bread. You don't need to auto-lease with something like this, because you've let a lot of the flour soak with the water already, so the flour is really hydrated, and that means that the gluten will form really, really quickly. Okay, so all I'm doing is just making sure that there's nothing dry. So again, like I say, if there's any dry lumps in the bottom, they'll affect your final dough, and you'll have like hard lumps in your dough, which you don't want. So all we're doing is just bringing it just together. It doesn't take much. It's about as hard as what you'll have to work on doing this. So it's now come together. Yes, it is sticky, but what we're going to do, I'm going to fold this twice until about 3 o'clock. So I'm going to give this 5-6 hours to prove, and all I'm going to do, after about an hour I'll fold, and then maybe an hour or hour or two later I'll fold again. All I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be lifting and folding into the middle. So getting the dough from the outside of the bowl, lift and in, and then lift and in. And even now, just doing that is starting to tighten it up and develop the gluten. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm now going to cover that. So I'll fold in an hour, fold an hour or two later, and then I'll leave it just to rise. And by about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, that's going to be ready just to scale, to cut into the size pieces of dough you want. From that we'll make the pizza. Then if I want, I can put the remaining dough in the fridge. I could use that for the next day if you want pizza twice in a row, if the kids really like it. And or I'll put it in the freezer. So here I am about to make my pizza sauce. Couldn't be anything easier. Don't need to worry about cooking up onions and garlic and then adding tomato and worrying about pureeing it up or anything like that. It's really quick and easy. So I started mixing my my pizza dough again this morning. So I did the Polish last night. I added the 250 flour, the 100 water, 10 grams of yeast this morning. I've given it 2 folds, and you can see now it's really, really puffed up. That is actually ready. I can start shaping that. What I'm going to do is, just for the kids, I'll make a 50-gram balls. So I'll scale it all out onto here. I'm going to put it into 50-gram balls. I'll save 2 because I'm going to make pizza for the kids tonight. And then the other balls I'm just going to put onto the tray, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in the freezer, and then I can get them out as I need them. All I'll have to do is let them thaw, and then I can shape them. But it's a really good fun thing for the kids to do. Sprinkle the, put the sauce on themselves, put the cheese on, put the fillings. I mean, mine, they only have cheese and tomato, but they like to help when mummy and daddy have put on their toppings and things like that. It's good fun for them. So in here I've got some passata. So I'm only doing a quarter of the recipe. The recipe will be with the pizza dough. I'm only doing a quarter because I only need to make a small amount. And all I've got is passata. I'm then adding, I should have just enough. Yeah. So the recipe is actually 410 passata, 22 tomato puree. It's then 5 grams of salt, and then it says to use some oregano. If you don't have oregano, everyone's got these sitting around in their cupboard. So just a nice big pinch of the mixed herbs as well. It just gives the tomato sauce a bit more flavour. And all I'm going to do is mix that together with a spoon. That couldn't be any simpler. The tomato puree just gives a bit more depth of flavour to the passata. Just makes it a little bit thicker. You can use a whisk if you want. If you're using tin tomatoes, because you can use tin tomatoes, little stick blender in there if you've got one at home. If not, just in the food processor. Or if you want, you can leave it chunky. It doesn't matter. So however you like it. And that's my tomato sauce. So it really couldn't be any easier. So I've now scaled the dough balls into 50-gram balls. I recommend for an adult probably about 150-gram pizza, but you make it as big as you want. But I find about 150 grams is good, to 200 grams, something like that. We usually get two out of this half mix. We usually get about 2 kiddies pizzas, and then we get about 3 adult pizzas, so you get a good amount. But as I said, we're only doing 2 for the kids tonight. I put a little bit of spray oil in there because the dough is quite sticky. It is quite stretchy though. The gluten has formed quite well. You can see it's quite stretchy. And all I'm going to do just to shape these balls is I'm just going to cut my hand and roll it around in my hand. And I've made a nice little dough ball. From there, I'm going to freeze those. So I've now got plenty of spare if I want to do something quick and easy for the kids. This is perfect because, as you can see, I've got lots. If I want to get it out, I can get it out. If you get it out of the freezer, you can get it out in the morning. Put it in the fridge. It won't overproof, you know, it's just going to defrost because it's got such a small amount of yeast in it. That's the idea of pizza dough. It doesn't have a lot of yeast in it, and so it won't overproof. So you can just like leave it in the fridge. When you come back, like when you finish work, or if you're at home, you just get it out the fridge a little bit later. You can leave it out on the side just to warm through, and then obviously you can manipulate it, shape it into the dough you want. And as you've seen, the sauce is really easy. I mean, I always have passata at home these days, the little pots or the little bottles, little reusable bottles, and always have tomato puree and the herbs in the cupboard, so it's a quick mix together. And a bit of grated cheese on top. It couldn't be anything easier. And when you think that how much you have to pay in the shops for a pizza, it's so easy to make. So here's a couple of little kiddies pizzas I've done. So these are about 55 grams. I wasn't worrying about being completely exact, so I find that that's a big enough portion for the girls. So all I've done, I've put a bit of the base on, and then I'm going to put the cheese. Just a little hint. Little tip when you're doing pizza, always put your cheese on next, and then put on your topping. If you put on your toppings and then you put on your cheese, what I find is that the cheese will just come off the top really easily. So it's better just to sprinkle that on before you put your toppings on, whether it's a bit of pepperoni or chorizo and things like that. I'm going to cook these in the oven. I'll put them on at about 180 degrees, and then they'll take between 8 and 12 minutes. Generally these ones are quite small, so they'll take about 8 minutes. The girls don't like the cheese too dark and gratinated, just a bit more melted. But as well, it all depends whereabouts in the oven. If you put them in the top of the oven, they'll be done quicker. If they're done in the lower part of the oven, they'll be taken a little bit slower. So what I generally do is I check after about 5 minutes, and then just swap them over in the oven. And then yeah, I say on average probably about 10 minutes is good. Okay, and there we are, just some little pizzas, and I'll cook them in a moment.